Bob has quit watching AEW, and Isaiah is gonna play FIFA. There they go. We bored him enough. That's okay because our guest is here, so we got time for that. So let's pop in there. Hopefully it works. I think that's.
Yeah, I can hear you guys just fine. What's up?
What's up, my friend? I think that I'm on the right scene that has your Twitter handle below your name, but I can't see.
I
From
can't
over
tell. I was watching the show before, and then I hopped in, and I had like sort of one of those weird moments that I'm sure all of you guys have had of like,
here.
man, I've got 3 tabs of audio playing. Where are they all coming from, and why do they all sound the same? So like, got her figured out.
I have that problem constantly. My basement down here. Well, obviously this is the bar, and like this is like there's a family room over there, and all this other stuff around. It looks like the Thunderdome. Like there's just monitors that go all the way around, and nobody's controlling the piped audio. There's a Titans game on here. There's old school wrestling on back there, and sometimes I never know where it's coming from. So,
well, usually here we've got like 2 sources. It's wrestling or my dog, who I'm 100% certain my girlfriend will be home in about 5 minutes, and you'll just hear him like take off like a son of a bitch. He's just gonna bark. So there's the pardon my interruption, but thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
I'm psyched to be on here. I always enjoy listening to you guys. And I'm just kind of, it's nice to be on the same bill as Shane Taylor.
yeah, right. We big shout out to Vanessa for snagging him at about I don't know what time we snagged him today. Oh, right there. I just see a note from Vanessa. It says Spencer is in Zoom. So
Ooh, what wine are you drinking?
there he is.
It is actually not wine, so I'm like pretty well strictly a beer guy.
But
but
see, now we're talking.
for my birthday this year, my girlfriend actually got me a goblet with, I don't know if you can see, but it says Spencer on it. So it's like the go-to glass de jour for things like this. I am drinking, excuse me, Jasper Brewing Company's Crisp Pills, which I highly recommend. Support local, whether it's wrestling, whether it's beer, whatever you possibly can. Like, if you can get it locally, why not, right?
Yeah, that is a good, very good advice. Although I drink Rolling Rock constantly, not very local, but I do occasionally venture out and get. We had this thing filled last time. This was a local.
Oh, rad!
You know, so. But you know, I can't just support them all the time. So
especially the size like that, man. But like, we're super lucky. Like, I'm out of Edmonton, Alberta, so we're really lucky. We've got a lot of great breweries, not here, but Calgary, sort of pretty well anywhere in the surrounding area. So like, it's pretty lucky where I am because it's pretty easy to be able to do so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But good problem to have.
yeah.
In Canada, craft breweries are a dime a dozen.
Which again, like, no complaints on my end.
No, for sure.
Thanks again, guys. I'm psyched to be here. I'm psyched to talk wrestling. Just to hop on a point, because like for me, one of my like biggest dream matches of all time, and I mean this quite sincerely, was that Big Show and Shaq tease that they had 5-6 years ago at Mania. Just because like I'm a huge sucker for stuff like that, and like, Shaq's an athlete, so at the very least, I sort of figure you can drag a good match out of him and go from there. With this, I'm especially intrigued because, like, the possibility of Shaquille O'Neal coming back and not having some sort of like Goliath versus Goliath matchup with a guy like the Big Show, or coming to AEW, like I would have assumed it's a guy like Wardlow, right? Put him over, whatever it may be. But the fact he's going up against Cody, or at least it looks like he's going to go up against Cody, I'm pretty psyched for that because, admittedly, again, it's not a dynamic I ever really thought could happen.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I didn't think of that Goliath versus Goliath, and we were just talking about that before. Oh man, where was I gonna go with that? I was gonna go Shaq, Cody. So there's been some talk on here before. We are I am watching the Titans, Bob. They are up 17-10. About Cody turning heel and this whole order. I don't know if you're a Star Wars fan. This whole Order 66 gimmick that he's going to turn heel. I believe he's really behind the Dark Order. Could this angle with Shaq, could this be the beginnings of that? Would you like to see that happen? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know, because like, again, as silly as it might sound here,
Mm-hmm.
I think Cody could like super effectively turn heel on Shaquille
Yeah.
O'Neal.
Yeah.
Like, you could make Shaquille O'Neal, despite the fact he's this like 7'5" monster, like you could still effectively have Cody turn heel, beat him down, take every mean necessary in order to make it happen. I think like I really like that idea of the Dark Order, because again, never crossed my mind whatsoever. I think that they would sort of have to go two different ways. You know what I mean? It would sort of
Yeah.
have to be one or the other. Um, Man, that would be cool though. I think it'd be really, really cool. And it'd be something unique, because like, admittedly, if they sort of go back to like the true elite days of how they were running in New Japan, and man, like I will have no complaints whatsoever about that entire run. But if they sort of go through and retread that with their own promotion, like, doesn't it feel very like NWO and WWE?
Yeah.
It
I don't want
feels
that.
sort of like a bit of a retread. And I know they're incredibly talented. I'm a fan of all of them in huge amounts. Like, I went to All In by myself and went down to Chicago to see these guys. So like, I'm a fan. I think I've spoken my credentials as far as I don't just hate these guys, but like, man, I wouldn't want to see them sort of go that road again. So if they were to do something like Cody's behind the Dark Order, sign me right up. That's cool as shit.
Yeah. It didn't click with me for the longest of times, and then it did. Because at first I wanted Cody, I wanted him to turn heel, but I wanted them to like reform some sort of four horsemen. And I tried to pick the right four people. I tried to figure out how it could be done and still come off as heelish, and I didn't know if that was even possible. And then I was listening to Busted Open, and Bully Ray was talking. I forget what exactly was said that clicked. It just clicked with me, and it all made sense that that is where they're going. So now I've totally fantasy booked it, and now it has to happen. And if it doesn't, I will be disappointed. Like every other stooge in the internet wrestling community. And
right, as soon as it doesn't go exactly as you planned, I'm done with this. Like, flip the table, Monopoly board's gone. I'm over this, brother.
Yeah, I'm gonna flip my table, and that's it. I'm done watching.
I'm done. I'm over this.
But yeah, so I had that written down. I was gonna ask you about Shaq, and I was gonna ask you about Pat McAfee and NXT. How do you follow NXT? How do you think that's going?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, again, I've got a bit of a bias that'll shine through, because as far as my teams go, I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan.
Oh shit! Are you really
saying that?
Did somebody tell him I'm a Titans fan?
No. So saying that, like, I'm not a huge NFL guy. I'll watch more CFL, but not a big football guy by any means. I was a Colts fan growing up because I hated Tom Brady. So who do you go when you hate Tom Brady? You got to go Peyton Manning, right? So it's just sort of, you continue from there. You know, there's never been really a reason. The only other team that I'll say that I'm like a fan of in the NFL is the Browns, because like it's fun to hop on at the real bottom of the boat.
Yeah, it is the bottom, or at least was. That's
right.
Funny.
But as far as it goes with Pat McAfee, number one, obviously his match with Adam Cole was incredibly impressive as far as first matches go. Again, against a great first opponent, you know? So there is, I think, I want to see him in another match for sure. I think that the first match that he had made me want to see a second, 110%. I think that going about it the way that they are, sort of setting up for maybe War Games. Everybody says you can't fit the War Game structure in that arena, but it's WWE. They'll figure it out. That's exactly it. Like, plans will change in their favor. But if they set up for War Games, great. If they set up for even like a Survivor Series matchup between the four, great. I think that'd be a super cool idea. NXT's been conspicuously absent from the Survivor Series build. So if you return you return Undisputed the week before, you could have that as a Survivor Series matchup, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think it's a perfect way to turn Undisputed babyface, you know, despite the fact that they were all super cool heels, you still had to have them turn effectively, because you can't have it be when you're that bad, even if you're getting cheered, you have to go completely opposite, right? So going up against these guys, for me, the fact that I'm booing Pete Dunne, I think that's a full credit to everything going on, right?
Yeah, right.
And I will also say, Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch are cool as shit. Oni Lorcan, Storm Wrestling Academy graduate. I will back them 110% every single time. So there's my opinion. McAfee's and he's a killer promo. I can't end anything without saying that. A guy who's that good that early, like he chose to make professional wrestling his career. I have no doubt he'd be real, real good.
Yeah, he's said it on his show before. He said it on Busted Open. Like he's always wanted to do this, and he feels that if he didn't go the NFL route, he probably could have done it for sure.
Well, yeah. Yeah, like it's they took it as a shot and in some way, shape, or form, and I don't get it because like when he brought up he was an all-decade kicker, like you're not an all-decade anything without being good. If you're an all-decade butcher, that's a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah, he does his job right, man. He comes out there and you just wanna punch him square in the face. And it's just
man. And the fact that they've been able to keep NXT this entertaining, in my opinion, without realistically having a champion for the better part of the last 2 months is huge. Because for me, championships, as they should be, I think for anybody, they're central, right? Like you've got to have a champion. It's the reason for me that despite Brock Lesnar being on like quite literally my personal Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
I didn't think he needed a championship for that long simply because of, the overstated but obvious part-time argument. Like you've got to have a champion on a show. You got to have him consistently because for me, like that's a huge reason at least the Universal Championship isn't as prestigious. I don't like that word, but like as prestigious as it should be because you see what Drew McIntyre did for it in 6 months.
Yep.
He did for that what Brock Lesnar did over 2 years, right? And that's just from the fact that Drew McIntyre is there every week, defending every week. They tried to do it with Rollins, and then Hell in a Cell happened, and that just ruined everything for the better part of a year.
That was horrible.
One of my things that I've always sort of strived for is to be positive about professional wrestling in any way, shape, or form that I possibly can, even if you hate the angle.
I agree.
And Hell in the Cell, like with the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, he's still like to this day my favorite professional wrestler in the WWE. But like it was hard to sit and like even try and be positive about that entire match. I don't get it. I still don't get it.
There was no explanation of why it turned out that way.
No, and then to double down on it, because they went to it was the Saudi Arabia Crown Jewel show next, and there has to be a winner. There's no way out, like their typical overdoing of hyperbole for it. It's like, well, if this was going to happen, like this was basically the stipulation of Hell in a Cell before you went and bastardized it with the two years in a row. There was a DQ or a non-finish in Hell in a Cell. That's asinine.
Yeah.
Asinine.
Yeah, they've driven the Hell in a Cell into the ground.
Screwed the proverbial pooch. Is what I've heard a lot.
Yeah. You mentioned something. You have Brock Lesnar on your personal Mount Rushmore. So I have to ask you. So you must be him beating Undertaker's streak. You that's the right choice then, right? In your mind?
See, I don't know if it's the right choice in the long run. It definitely helped. Let's just get real here. I think that definitely solidified him as far as his credentials go, so to speak. But, I'm very for the argument that you could have used something like that, have Taker beat Lesnar, lose to Wyatt the next year again. Like my bias sort of shines through there. But you could have really established a new talent. But for me as well, top guys are top guys, whether you look at Lesnar, whether you look at Cena, whether you look at Triple H, HBK, Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, whoever it may be, all of them at some point in their careers, most with multiple points in their careers, have some sort of controversial win where you'd say, man, they should have put the young guy over. They should have let this guy win and established a star. Top guys are top guys though, and if you want to make someone a legend in the long run, you have to establish them at every point you can, I think, right? And with Brock Lesnar, as much as I didn't even hate the match, and it could have been so much more. You saw that with their SummerSlam matchup, and you saw that with the Hell in a Cell matchup. But I just think that you have to let your big dogs be big dogs. You know what I mean? It's the same reason to let Roman Reigns wins all the time. Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, you're going to look back on him the same way you look back on Cena when everybody had a lot of similar reactions and say, no, like, look at what he did. He won this, and this. He won the Rumble. He won 5-6 heavyweight championships, whatever it is for Reigns now. Like, that does build credentials. You know, there's a lot of very reactionary, dumb sentence on my part alert, reactionary reactions in professional wrestling, and people are very quick to establish their judgment, and everybody does. So do I. You'll see me on Twitter with my snap reactions and my live tweets and all of that. But like, in the long run, at the end of the day, when you look back and see shit like that, like Roman Reigns, even before he came back and came on this run of his life that he's having over the last little bit, there were very few people who carried the weight that Roman Reigns did in WWE. And you've got to give people big wins to make that happen. So there's my long-winded answer. I think there could have been better decisions made with who could have broken the Undertaker streak, just based on somebody potentially going, like Lesnar went from here to here, whereas somebody could have gone from here to here.
Right.
But at the end of the day, do I hate the decision? No. I would have hated if, like, Shawn Michaels came back 3 years after retiring and beat the Undertaker or something like that. Yeah, like something like that would have been pretty asinine to me. But no, I got no arguments with Lesnar. Brock Lesnar, if he, I firmly believe if he hadn't gone to, I was having this conversation over lunch today, actually. If he hadn't gone to either UFC, if he hadn't gone to the NFL, just in the professional wrestling scope of things, he would be on so many more people's Mount Rushmores.
Yeah.
That guy is an all-time great talent. There's no arguing it. There is very little, if anything, that he does poorly in pro wrestling. Like, sells great, makes his opponents look like $1 million, with, of course, the caveat, as everybody does when he wants to. When he shows up, he brings that air of legitimacy that I still think he would have had if he hadn't gone to the UFC. Like, they were building him right. It's not like he wasn't a monster in 2003. You add another 8-9 years of professional wrestling or whatever it was in between his leaving and his return. Yeah, man, that guy is at the very least an all-time great talent.
Do you think we're going to see him in a wrestling ring somewhere again eventually?
Yeah, and I'm debating with myself whether I'd want to see him have like an AEW run or an NXT run more, because I just think that would be
NXT run.
Man, it'd be nuts. It'd be absolutely nuts. And I don't think either's going to happen. Vince will do whatever it takes to keep him up there. And when he's on there, you may as well play him. But like, man, you talk about popping a rating, like Brock Lesnar showing up on a Wednesday night, regardless of where it is, would be absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. He'll be back in a ring. He'll 100% be back in a ring.
I agree. And
Brock Lesnar will go out on his, and I think Brock Lesnar will go out on a big loss. He's an incredible business person in professional wrestling, I guess is the phrase to use.
Yeah.
He'll go out with a huge loss. He'll make someone look like $1 million. He made Eddie Guerrero look like $1 million. Rey Mysterio look like $1 million. All these little guys, he's made big guys look like $1 million before.
Wow.
Yeah.
Putting over Brock Lesnar. Now I want to see Brock.
Oh, dude. And that is Saskatchewanite Brock Lesnar now.
Yeah.
There's another win for Canada.
Yeah. Speaking of Canada, so when Vanessa, told me we were gonna have you on, and I'll be honest, I didn't know who you were at the time, and she's like, "Oh, he's big."
Don't worry, you're not alone in that.
She goes, "Oh, he's big in Canadian wrestling. Used to own WCSN, and he just loves wrestling in general, which you just portrayed phenomenally. Like, I can hear that passion."
Thank you.
And something I've been learning here on this show since this pandemic, and with the help of Vanessa, I've been getting a lot of independent Canadian wrestlers on here. I guess I never knew, or I was just too naive to realize how rich wrestling is in Canada.
Right.
With the independent scene, I guess to me it was just like, the Hearts and Jericho was always from Canada, and then that was it. And then that's all I really knew,
Well, and I don't even think that's like naive to say for a lot of people, to be honest with you. I don't think it's really any professional wrestling fans' fault. that the Canadian scene doesn't get as much exposure as it deserves. I think over the past sort of 2-3 years, you've really seen the entire industry up north take a real step forward as far as video production, as far as really trying to get themselves out there. And that's not to say there weren't people like that before. You know, you look at someone like Chelsea Green, who since she debuted has hustled and hustled and hustled and made her way out of Victoria. But I really think over probably the last 15 years, Stampede officially closed in 06. And over about the past 15 years, I really think that, not for a lack of trying, but I do think there's sort of been a vacuum in professional wrestling. There hasn't really been a promotion that's done an excellent job of getting out and live streaming their stuff, getting a VOD out there. You know, it's a very traditional market. At least I can speak a lot for Alberta. I've only gone to limited shows in sort of the rest of Western Canada, but it's a very old school market. It is the Stampede influence for it, but because a lot of the fans out here for a long time were sort of old or very used to tape trading, DVDs, all of that sort of stuff, it was more of a very personal experience, I think, for a lot of people. And I really think there was a huge opportunity for a long, long time across Canada of getting video out there, really gaining some exposure. I think a lot of promotions are doing really well on that end now. You look at Smash, you look at Ben Fatale, you look at PWA over here in Alberta, you look at some of those promotions and they're doing a great job. But, you know, not to sound like an asshole, but you look at some of the promotions down in the States, you know, like an AAW, a Defy, the stuff they're doing and getting out quickly and really getting behind and promoting. That's the reason you're seeing stars come out of there. That's why you're seeing a guy like Artemis Spencer, who wrestles for ECCW for shit nearly 20 years at this point, really start to get a break because he goes down and wrestles for Defy and earns their championship and starts to break through that way.
Yep.
There's a real opportunity on that, and I don't think that there's any lack of trying. I think it's perhaps a lack of knowledge and old school sort of mentality maybe. But as far as the wrestling itself goes, like, preach, man, it's so good. You can go to any independent show on any given day, and again, I can speak for all of Western Canada as far as that goes. You can go to any show and be just thoroughly damn entertained. It's so good. We're so lucky with what we've got here. I've only been out to Ontario once to check out some shows. I was there for SummerSlam last year, but I ended up trying to go out to like literally as many as I could. I think I made it to like 9 or 10 over the 6 days I was there. And same thing, just incredible. Like Tyson Dukes, I know you guys did a great interview with him. Just what a smart dude. And the fact that that guy's not held in the sort of regard outside of Canada that a William Regal is, or someone who is just such a student of the game. Man, that again is just almost offensive to me because that guy is like one of the smartest dudes I've ever talked to.
Yeah.
And you watch him wrestle and it's evident, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been so eye opening just getting to talk to some of these people, just hearing their stories, hearing their passion. And then I go back, and then now I'm watching all sorts of promotions I would have never seen. I would have never even known of. It's just insane to me.
It's absolutely nuts. And you can speak for that for every province. Again, like you even look at some of the stuff that's coming up in BC since ECCW sort of had to shut down for all the right reasons, rightfully so. But like you look at All-Star Wrestling, you look at 365, like some of the talents we've got out here, you know, the Voros twins are an easy name to throw out there because they go viral on TikTok, but you watch those two wrestle and there's a reason they're showing up in ROH last year.
Yeah.
There's just incredible talent everywhere. And I can't speak highly enough of it without, you know, sounding like more of a mark than I already do, but
it's okay.
We all are, right?
We've learned on this show that it is okay to mark out.
Man. Everybody got into this because they're fans, right?
That's right.
There aren't a lot of people who got into professional wrestling, whether it's wrestling itself, whether it's podcasting, whether it's commentating, refereeing, whatever it may be. You don't show up at that first show and think, fuck, I'm going to be rich in about 3 weeks. Like professional wrestling in any way, shape, or form is something that people do as a labor of love, right? And whether you're in the WWE, whether you're in Alberta, whether you're wrestling your first show, just starting training, whatever, like you're doing it for the love of it. People are throwing their bodies against concrete, cement, anything they possibly can for people's entertainment. How are you not doing that because you love it?
Yeah, for sure. So where do I want to go from here? I have a whole note here on the Montreal Screwjob. You just did a podcast on that, right?
Yes, I did. I actually did the Smark and Friends podcast.
Yes.
That's another great dude
Yes,
in
it is.
Canadian professional wrestling. If you got the opportunity to check them out,
Yeah.
again, it's just cool when you get the opportunity to like talk pro wrestling and just talk with people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Man, it's one of the first things, and I was telling Zach this when we recorded. I have a bit of a unique introduction, I guess, to professional wrestling. Like, I only was able to really watch it when I was at my grandma's house over lunch hour twice a week. Other than that, didn't really watch it at home.
Yeah.
So, like, I was a fan growing up, but I wasn't really a consistent watcher.
Right.
But growing up in Alberta, when you start to get into professional wrestling, I went to my first indie show in 2011 and just sort of started going down the rabbit hole from there. So, one of the first things you check out is, well, you got to find out more about the Montreal Screwjob. You got to check out this match. You've got to watch this documentary, because not only is it like just wrestling history, but of course in Alberta, it's like you almost have to hate Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. It's
right.
Like the gospel. Yeah, for sure.
So like, it's just, everybody's talked about it a million different times. Everybody, I think, has offered their own unique perspective on it. For me, I really don't think, when I went back and rewatched the match and rewatched Wrestling with Hearts, or Bret the Hitman Hart, sorry. Yeah. There we go. Sorry. That was a good match. Like, that was a really good match up until the finish. And number two is, it just sort of struck me that, you know, the same way that I say everybody's got their opinion of it.
Yeah.
Everybody, like, they've got an opinion because they feel so much about it. You know what I mean? You see it a lot in professional wrestling, but like, this is something, the best reference point I can make is like, my dad by no means is a professional wrestling fan, and he can sit and talk to me about the Montreal Screwjob. You know, it's like, it's more a cultural event at this point than it is a professional wrestling event in and of itself. And I think it's so cool that professional wrestling, to take a phrase from Mr. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, then, now, and I'm assuming forever. Will have the ability to break through every so often like that, and have everyone approach people like us and be like, hey, did you see this in professional wrestling? There's nothing I love more than when my non-wrestling fans come and, hey, did you see Brock Lesnar's going back to the UFC? Yeah, you want to talk pro wrestling? It's a bonding moment. That's the sort of shit I love. And the Montreal Screwjob, despite the fact that unfortunately it did not end in my hero's favor, still a pretty cool event at the end of the day.
Yeah, awesome. Before I wrap up here and give you the mic to put over whatever you want, we have somebody in the chat saying, now I don't know what they mean, but I will just repeat it. Please ask Spenny if he's ever been to Canada, and does he hate Kenny? P.S. I'd love Kenny versus Spenny to return.
I also would love Kenny versus Spenny to return. I'm going to answer the second point first. Kenny versus Spenny, when I spoke with Tyson Dukes, if you ever get the opportunity to go back and watch the episode of Kenny versus Spenny that he appeared on, the wrestling episode, man, I stand by that as being my favorite episode. Second, of course, closely followed by who can put an octopus on their head the longest. There's the two go-tos. If you guys haven't watched those yet, 100% what I would recommend first and second most. I have been to Canada. In fact, I live in Canada. I am based out of Edmonton, Alberta. We are 3 hours north of Calgary, which is about 5 to 6 hours north of the United States border. For reference, if they're asking from the United States, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with Fahrenheit, but for reference, it was minus 21 degrees Celsius today and snowing like an SOB. So
like a sumbitch.
Whatever the quick math is.
Whoa, you're in the negatives already?
Oh man, and not only that, but we got like absolutely dumped on over the weekend, and it's still sort of dropping off a little bit, but we're still getting the snow. So knock on wood, at the very least, my dog loves the snow, so could be worse.
Well, I won't brag how my day was then.
No, don't worry about it. Like over the weekend, we were my family's in Calgary, and they were sending us photos of like same thing. It's sunny out, we're good to go, everything's beautiful, and it's like, F off, you guys.
Phenomenal stuff. Only Marks won't know who Kenny. Shut up, Spuddy. He is from Canada, and he's here to troll the stream. He's our resident troll, but he's a cool person, and now I have to check it out. So, Awesome. Spencer,
Highly recommend it.
You've been phenomenal, and you can come back on anytime you want I have Pros vs. Joes written down here, so you'll have to come back on sometime.
Oh man, yeah, like that's a special edition. We may have to go like a season by season on that one.
And
Absolutely.
I did not. Okay, I'll leave it at this. I did not know there were 4 seasons.
Oh man, you're missing out. Did you at least know there were 3?
I knew. I tell you the truth. I knew there was at least 2, and then so I'm writing down the names. I'm writing down the names, and I'm like, I keep scrolling down who was on it. And I'm like, 4 seasons. Holy crap!
Man, and Angle was like just nuts in the best possible way when he was on that show. It's incredible. I might go and watch that right now.
Yeah. But I'm going to give you the mic as I do at the end of every show. You can put over anything you want. You can bury anything you want. You can say anything you want, and I will not interrupt, and neither will you, Spuddy.
Well, no worries. Like number one, I want to put you guys over. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's an absolute blast to get to talk professional wrestling, but it's been an absolute blast specifically to chat professional wrestling with you guys. Thank you again. It's appreciated as hell. I will definitely be taking you up on that next appearance because this has been fun.
Yeah.
As far as putting things over, who would I specifically like to put over? A couple of people actually specifically. Number one, I need to put over Chris Parrish. He is my co-host on most of the live shows, all of that sort of stuff that I do. I'm going to be ramping some things back up in January, so stay tuned to my social media for that. But Chris Parrish will be alongside me for that. And then as far as Albertan professional wrestling goes, there is one individual that I would like to credit with everything. Well, most of the things that have come my way, because obviously you get help from everybody when you're involved in professional wrestling. But Michael Richard Blaze, God's gift to wrestling. If you guys have the opportunity to check out any professional wrestling from out here, he is the starting point as far as it's concerned for about the last 15 years. Tyson Kidd trained him, and he has gone out of his way in his time here. And I mean like out of his way to make sure that every pro wrestler who's come through here is trained well, taken care of, treated properly. He's a hell of a pro wrestler, an even better individual. So if I've got to put anybody over, it's those 2 individuals. And excuse me as I catch my breath. If you want to check anything out as far as professional wrestling out here goes on a very quality service, Backbreaker Media is the place to do so. They've got archive footage. They've got current footage. It's a really great starting point if you guys want to check out any great Albertan professional wrestling. They're the place to go outside of just randomly searching people up on YouTube. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's it. That's all. I'm tapping out. Thank you guys for having me.
Awesome.
It's very, very cool to be the semi-main with Shane Taylor.
Awesome. Awesome. Have yourself a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
You guys too. Thanks again.
Yeah, later.
See ya.